Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wellness Wednesdays. I'm Caroline Berger, Director of Corporate and Community Relations for the University of Arizona Health Sciences in Phoenix. And I'm also joined today by my colleague, Anne-Marie Medina, who is our Director in Tucson. On behalf of our team, we want to thank you for joining us for the next hour for this health and wellness news and update. And now I'd like to share just a little bit overall about our University of Arizona Health Sciences Division.
Welcome to the University of Arizona Health Sciences. As the statewide leader in biomedical research and health professions training, Health Sciences includes College of Medicine Tucson, College of Medicine Phoenix, College of Nursing, College of Pharmacy, and the Melanenid Zuckerman College of Public Health. Together, they provide cutting-edge health education, breakthrough research, and a diverse offering of community outreach services. At the heart of health sciences, our employees, nearly 5,000 along with 4,000 students, makes us one of the top employers in the state. Our growing research and education programs are offered on 2 campuses, one at the main campus in Tucson and the other in the heart of downtown Phoenix on the Biomedical campus. The University of Arizona Health Sciences is a major contributor to UArizona's well-earned reputation as one of the country's top research institutions. And each year, we receive more than $200 million in research grants and contracts, providing vital funding to help address some of our most critical healthcare challenges. We are grateful for this support, which is fueling discoveries and treatments in areas including cardiovascular disease, cancer, Alzheimer's disease, and now COVID-19. The University of Arizona Health Sciences is also in a unique position to affect change in a rapidly shifting healthcare landscape. As part of our strategic plan, we have developed a set of initiatives to reshape the future of healthcare. We are focusing our efforts on 5 important areas: next-generation education, precision healthcare for all, making wellness ageless, creating defenses against disease, and new frontiers for better health. Through these strategic initiatives, we have unprecedented opportunities to excel in education and research in more and better ways than ever before, and we invite you to join us on this journey. Please know that our dedicated corporate and community relations team is here to be your connector with health sciences. Thank you for your dedication and for all that you do to make our communities healthy.
As you can see, we have a very robust representation within our colleges representing health sciences at the University of Arizona. We have lots of information, news, and updates. It's happening literally almost every moment of any day. So I'd like to share just a few top news items that are hitting today's stories. Recently, researchers have discovered copper as a potential antibiotic. That is being developed right here on the Tucson campus. And they're determining that copper, when bound with that, is a bacteria that commonly causes pneumonia, meningitis, and sepsis. So you will be receiving an email following today's session, and I will make sure that we have the link in there so that you can learn more about that vital research that's going on. And another research that's of interest to many pet-loving people. Many of you may have heard about valley fever. That is very common here in Arizona and unique to our communities. However, know that valley fever can also affect our pets. And again, a research team led by our Valley Fever Center of Excellence has successfully tested a vaccination for dogs, with 2 doses providing high levels of protection. So we're hearing a lot about vaccines in the news today. So this is exciting news for our friendly fur-loving members of our family. So again, this link will be provided in our post-event email so you can read more about it. And again, to stay up to date on all the latest happenings for health sciences at the University of Arizona, we invite you to go to our website, uahs.arizona.edu, and be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram to get all the latest news and events and happenings. So today, we'd like to have this be a very interactive session. We invite you to leave your comments and your questions and remarks in the chat section. Please feel free to do so at any time during the hour session. As I mentioned, you will be getting a post-session email, which will include a brief survey. We'd like to get your thoughts on today's presentation and also ideas for any future programming that you might have. You will also have links and resources in there to today's video, which is being recorded. You will be able to share that. It's going to be posted on our YouTube channel, so feel free to share that with friends, families, and loved ones. And plus, you will see links to all of our past Wellness Wednesday sessions. So in case you missed any of those and you want to get caught up, you will be able to have that resource right at your fingertips. So without further ado, I am very thrilled and honored today to introduce our featured speaker, who is Dr. Roberta Diaz Brinton. Dr. Brinton is the director of the Center for Innovation in Brain Science at the University of Arizona Health Sciences and a Regents Professor of Pharmacology and Neurology in the University of Arizona College of Medicine, Tucson. An internationally recognized expert in Alzheimer's, her research has demonstrated sex differences in the disease, therapeutic strategies to prevent, delay, and treat the disease, and is in clinical development of the first regenerative therapeutic to regenerate the degenerated brain. Dr. Brinton has received numerous awards and recognition for her research, including Scientist of the Year by the Alzheimer's Drug Discovery Foundation, Woman of the Year by the California State Senate, Science Educator of the Year by the Society for Neuroscience, and Los Angeles Magazine's Woman of the Year, and U.S. News and World Report's 10 Best Minds. For her outstanding work in promoting STEM careers among students of color, President Barack Obama has awarded her one of the nation's highest civilian honors, the Presidential Citizens Medal. So we are just delighted and thrilled to have such a distinguished presenter here with us this afternoon. So please welcome Dr. Roberta Diaz Brinton. Dr. Brinton, I will stop sharing my screen so that you can have this forum now.
Thank you, Caroline, and I'm delighted to join all of you today from sunny Tucson to sunny Phoenix area and across the state. I want to make mention that I am a University of Arizona alumnus, and actually started the research that ultimately led to our development of a regenerative therapeutic for Alzheimer's disease. So I want to give you a little sense of what we're doing at the center and then move into our description of our clinical trial that will be coming to the Phoenix area soon, and hopefully also to Tucson area. So here at the Center for Innovation in Brain Science, we're really focused on the challenge that in the 21st century, there's not a single cure for a single neurodegenerative disease. And we looked at that challenge a number of years ago and I said, the University of Arizona is the place to be. The University of Arizona is a bold and courageous institution. And I'm delighted that they recruited me, and we have developed the center to address 4 diseases that are associated with aging: Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, age-related multiple sclerosis, and ALS. And we're very excited that we have multiple potential therapeutics in the pipeline that are close to clinical trials. And we have a rich pipeline of additional therapeutics that have evolved from our research here at the center. Many of you may have a family member who has Alzheimer's disease. And as I have continued my research in Alzheimer's disease, it is very clear that when one member of the family has the disease, the entire family lives with that disease. And that's true for Parkinson's and ALS and multiple sclerosis. And our goal is to bring innovations in brain science of the future to those who need it today. So we are very, very conscious that many, many individuals and their families are living with these neurodegenerative diseases. And we come to the center every day with you in our minds and in our spirit. So we work diligently every day and have for many decades. So let me tell you a little bit about what we have developed for our regenerative therapeutic for Alzheimer's disease. So I'm going to go to slide and share my screen. There we go. There. So the work that we have done over the past 20 years has led to a phase 2 clinical trial of a molecule, allopregnanolone, or Aloe for short, ALLO, to treat Alzheimer's disease. So many of you, again, are aware that the brain, shown here in an MRI, a slice of the MRI, can degenerate. Oops, here we go. Can degenerate with the disease. And what you can see here is that there's a loss of structure of the brain that can begin early in the disease process. What we are committed to doing is to actually regenerate that brain, to regenerate the brain that has been lost to Alzheimer's disease. Now, how are we going to do that? Well, it turns out that the brain has the capacity to regenerate itself, and that's shown here in this video. There are two regions in the brain that have neural stem cells that can regenerate in the subventricular zone as well as in this subgranular zone. And what you see here is neural stem cell that then divides and generates another neural stem cell, and that these neural stem cells ultimately become nerve cells. And it's through this process that allopregnanolone, Aloe, is promoting the regeneration of neural stem cells and then ultimately neurons themselves. In addition, we're very excited that Aloe has multiple effects. It promotes the generation of new neurons. It also promotes the generation of the connections in the brain and the actual interaction, the connections between nerve cells, the synapses, to promote recovery of cognitive function. In addition, Aloe promotes the energy system of the brain and reduces inflammation in the brain. And we also found that Aloe reduces the burden of Alzheimer's pathology. So not only is Aloe regenerating the brain, it's restoring the brain to health. Now, why would that be? Why would Aloe function in this way? Well, it turns out Aloe is a natural molecule, and it's made everyone generates and produces Aloe in the third trimester of pregnancy, when the brain undergoes a 4-fold increase in size during the third trimester of pregnancy. Aloe is safe under the most challenging of circumstances. It's safe in women of reproductive age with fetus. So aloe has already undergone thousands of years of safety testing and regeneration testing in utero. Interestingly, but perhaps not surprisingly, the dose that we found most effective of aloe exactly matches that generated during the third trimester of pregnancy. So with our existing safety data, we conducted a phase 1 clinical trial for safety and established that aloe in persons with Alzheimer's disease, early phases of Alzheimer's disease, that aloe is safe and well tolerated. And based on our initial evidence, we are now about to start the Regen Brain clinical trial, a phase 2 clinical trial to test whether aloe can regenerate the Alzheimer's brain. We have encouraging evidence from our early phase 1b/2a trial that there is evidence for the potential for increasing brain structure as well as brain connections, and at the very least, slowing or reducing brain atrophy. So we have encouraging data from a very small number of persons, about 14 individuals. And now we're able to go into a phase 2 clinical trial to really test whether aloe can regenerate the Alzheimer's brain. So I'm going to stop sharing. Actually, maybe I'll leave this up a bit for others to take down information. If you want to learn more about the trial, this is the website that you can go to sign up for additional information about the trial and the clinical trial sites that will be in proximity to you. And if you want to learn more about how the trial is designed and many other points of information about the trial, you can access that information at clinicaltrials.gov and enter in this identifier, and it will take you exactly to our clinical trial that describes exactly what we'll be testing and how we'll be conducting the trial. So with that, I will stop sharing and take any questions if there are any. Carolyn?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Brinton. Yes, we welcome your questions so that we can get your feedback. So actually, I have a couple questions, Dr. Brinton, just on, we know that this is November already, so this is Alzheimer's Awareness Month. Are we seeing that there's any difference in the likelihood of men versus women with diagnosing Alzheimer's?
Yeah, so that's a great question. About 2/3 of people with Alzheimer's disease are women, 1/3 are men. And so for many years, people thought that the only reason why there were more women is because they live longer than men, and they do on average about 4.5 years. But we were very interested in better understanding why women are at greater risk for developing Alzheimer's disease. And it isn't because they live longer. It's because they can start the disease earlier, during midlife, during the menopausal transition. And that's why then when you reach the mid-70s, early 80s, this 20-year, what's called a prodromal phase. Alzheimer's disease is a disease that takes a long time to develop to the point of diagnosis, but it starts 20 years earlier, before the time of diagnosis. Mm-hmm. So what's very important about that is that if we know that, we can begin to look for the signs of Alzheimer's disease very, very early in the process of the disease and have the potential of reversing that process and preventing that process in persons who are at risk for developing Alzheimer's disease. Mm-hmm. So one way to do that, and this is true for women and men, is to sustain metabolic health. The brain is the most metabolically energy demanding organ of the body. So, and it depends on glucose as its fuel. And when there's dysregulated glucose metabolism, where glucose is not entering into cells, but just sitting in the blood, like what happens with insulin resistance, the brain can be the first organ actually affected. So maintaining metabolic health actually is the best way to sustain cognitive health. And that's true for women and for men. And studying how women's brains are at risk for developing Alzheimer's disease taught us the right questions to ask about the male brain. And we have found that indeed, women and male brains are different. And it looks like that women tend to use lipids as their fuel, and men tend to use amino acids as an auxiliary fuel. So I'm going to stop that portion of the conversation and take a look at some of the questions. And one of the questions is, does aloe have the same effect on other brain degenerative diseases such as Parkinson's? I'm very happy you asked that. We have early, what's called preclinical discovery science evidence that aloe can be effective in a model of Parkinson's disease. So we're quite interested now, because we have safety data in older individuals, we're quite interested now in testing whether what we saw in our discovery science actually translates to Parkinson's disease. So we're quite focused now on developing aloe for Parkinson's disease as well. And happy to discuss that further. So another question is, would it also help regenerate brains damaged by trauma? So that's a little more complicated. The answer is there's a lot of evidence to suggest, again, discovery science, some translational science. The clinical science is yet to really be definitive, whether aloe could promote recovery from trauma. I'm optimistic that that would be the case. It's not been tested sufficiently well at this point. I would also say it depends on the type of trauma. But I do think that it's a great question, and it's one that we're considering and in our portfolio of therapeutic development and clinical trials. So another question is, how are diseases like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and ALS and multiple sclerosis, are there any similarities? Well, we think so. One of the hypotheses we're testing here at the center is that there is actually a common driver to age-associated neurodegenerative diseases, and that is a bioenergetic crisis in the brain, what I was referring to earlier. That the brain, because it is highly energetically demanding, that as we age, there may in fact be a deficit in the ability to generate sufficient energy to sustain brain function. And our initial hypothesis is that that can be a Kickstarter for later development of Parkinson's, later development of Alzheimer's, ALS, and multiple sclerosis. We're not at the point where we can say that definitively, but we know that in each of these diseases, there's a decline in the ability of the brain to utilize glucose as its fuel. And so one of the things that happens is the brain goes into what I call a survival mode, and it's going to switch to using auxiliary fuels, alternative fuels to glucose. One of those fuels is lipids to generate ketone bodies. Another fuel is amino acids, and specifically branched amino acids. Those branched amino acids can be converted into glucose or ketone bodies. And both of those molecules can fuel the brain's energy demand. So how available is Aloe? And Aloe is now not available for over the counter or for prescription, but we're working diligently to do that. Now, there is a product for postpartum depression that has very limited use, but overall, it's not yet available for the indications that we're working on, but we're working on that very, very diligently. Are there nutritional considerations for preventing Alzheimer's disease? And yes, essentially, again, sustaining metabolic health. If you sustain metabolic health and vascular health, you have a greater chance of not developing these diseases. It doesn't mean that it's an absolute. It just means you're shifting the risk profile. So in women, there's another question. Lipids are fuel for brain health or Alzheimer's progression. What does this mean to my diet regimen? So again, let's think about something a little different. Diet is absolutely critical. When I think about what characterizes people who live well and healthy into their hundreds, some of you may have heard of these blue zones. And blue zones are characterized by a large number of individuals living well into their 90s to 100 or plus. And what you see about those individuals is that they're not rail thin, but they're kind of hefty. They're a little hefty, and they also walk constantly. They're walking to get the groceries. They're walking back with their groceries. They're gardening. They're moving. And so they don't necessarily have a gym membership, but they're constantly moving. And that's very important for both metabolic health and vascular health. And they eat, kind of a Mediterranean diet. They eat a vegetable, protein-rich diet. Not a lot of fried foods, not a lot of processed foods. So that definitely, I think, is key when we're thinking about what's the nutritional, if you will, therapeutic program that we would like for ourselves and our family members. And I want to also get to the question of what are the symptoms of early Alzheimer's? So we all forget where our keys are. We all, forget whether we turn the oven off. We all forget whether we close the garage door because we're not paying attention all the time to those smaller tasks. It's when that forgetting is constant and that you can't rely on basically saying, well, I did that. Okay, yeah. I closed the door. I closed the garage door. Or when there's the problem of, wait a minute, I kind of for an instant forgot what keys are for. So that's different than not finding your keys. When you don't quite remember what something is for, and it's a very common, part of your daily life, that's very problematic, right? So, and then being aware of when others are finishing your sentences, that it makes it easier for others to finish your sentences, to find that word, to complete your thought, to take over those tasks that you have routinely done. That's problematic. And being aware earlier is better. Right? What we're really focused on is two strategies: preventing age-associated neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, and intervening early to turn that process around, to regenerate, to restore, and to recapture that life that you love and for those who love you. Carolyn, do you want me to go on with?
Oh, yes, please go ahead. We have a couple more questions on there too.
Great. So what are the symptoms? What if, and what does heredity play a role? Well, in heredity, that there's a gene that's a risk factor actually for each of those diseases, and it's called the ApoE4 gene. It's ApoE4 gene. It's a risk factor. There are other risk factors, genetic risk factors that can be inherited. They're risk factors. Only about 1% of people with Alzheimer's disease will absolutely develop the disease. They have a variant of a gene that will absolutely cause Alzheimer's disease. That's 1%, and they're very rare. Most people will have an age-associated risk or a genetic risk like the ApoE4 gene. So one of the things that I want to communicate is that it's a risk gene. It's not an absolute gene. And to give you an example, is we conducted a study in 500 women, all of them healthy, and we studied them for over a year, and we tested the hypothesis that metabolic health could be a risk for Alzheimer's disease, right? Poor metabolic health. So we tested women on measures of metabolic health and cardiovascular health and followed them over a number of years. And what we found is that women who were at risk, they didn't have type 2 diabetes, but they were on the wrong end of normal. So they were at risk for developing type 2 diabetes, and who carried the ApoE4 gene were the women who were experiencing significant cognitive decline. There were other women who had poor metabolic health or at-risk metabolic health, and who didn't carry the risk factor, and who also were not performing well as metabolically healthy women, but it was not as great as the women who were in poor metabolic health and had the ApoE4 risk gene. But here's the kicker. The ApoE4 gene was equally distributed among these 500 women. And there were the same number of women in the metabolically healthy women who carried the ApoE4 gene. And so what that taught us is it's modifiable, and the modifier is metabolic health. So maintaining metabolic health can actually change the risk, essentially the impact of having a risk factor. And that's likely true for Parkinson's and ALS and multiple sclerosis. So the other component of this is, in terms of heredity, is that knowing your risk can modify your choices, right? I like to say that as we age, we can do everything we've always done. We can party hard, we can go at work, nonstop, we can do it all. The only difference is it's going to cost us more. And it costs us more in time to recover and rejuvenate, right? So now, if we want to party hard or we want to work really hard, we have to factor in recovery time, rejuvenate time. Right? So, and I think that's very important for us to consider as we age. What do we need to do to take care and to be conscious of our biological limits? And if we carry a risk factor, then we also have to be aware of, well, what is that risk factor? Where's this risk factor come in? So for example, with the ApoE4 gene, this gene codes for a protein that transports cholesterol, right? It transports it into cells and across cells. Well, if we know that we have that ApoE4 risk gene, then something that we need to be aware of is, how well is my cholesterol, levels? Are they well within normal? Or are they at the edge of normal? Because if they're at the edge of normal, then that's a clear sign that the cholesterol levels are going in the wrong direction. And maybe you need to consider talking with your physician about a statin therapy. Our work has shown that individuals who are on a statin therapy have a reduced risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. We've also found that women who elect to receive hormone therapy, particularly natural estrogen, natural progesterone, the same types of molecules that we make, at the time of menopause, when they have symptoms, not years later, but when they have symptoms, if they've started hormone therapy or estrogen therapy at the time of menopausal symptoms, they have a reduced risk of developing Alzheimer's disease 20 years later. So part of the other message that I would bring to you is what we do now with our biology actually shows up later. It can show up later. How well we take care of ourselves now shows up today and a whole bunch of tomorrows. And I think this is a challenging lesson for all of us, including me, that how well we take care of ourselves today has an impact for our tomorrows. So can I address any local resources for family and caregivers? Yes. The Arizona Alzheimer's Association is a phenomenal resource. There's also the Banner Alzheimer's Research Institute that is both here in Tucson as well as in Phoenix. And they have a number of resources, and I would encourage you to look at the resources that both of those organizations have. Now, I'm going to make a plug for a study that my colleagues, Dr. Carol Barnes and Meredith Hay and Lou Ryan and Matt Hultelman, and I recently received funding for, and that is what's called precision aging. And our goal is to actually detect resilient aging, determine what makes resilient aging and what makes vulnerable aging. And we're using a tool called MindCrowd. It's all one word. You just have to type it in, MindCrowd. And you can take a cognitive test and you can follow your cognitive ability, your cognitive function for years, every day, using MindCrowd. And also, you can send a spot of blood on a piece of filter paper and have you be part of a research study in resilient versus vulnerable aging. So we're very excited about that project, and that is, and MindCrowd is already up and going. So take a look at that if you're interested. So does demyelination have any role in Alzheimer's? Yes, it does. Demyelination. So let me just say for everybody on the session here. So myelin is also known as white matter. And so the brain has two general categories of matter: gray matter, which are nerve cells, and white matter, which forms this covering, this insulation around the long arm of the nerve cell called the axon. And that allows for fast thinking, fast moving, fast reacting. So we have lots of local circuits that don't need this myelination, and the longer circuits do require myelination. And yes, so one of the key hallmarks of Alzheimer's disease is a loss of myelination. And I think what I'm going to do is share my screen again in case folks want more information on the Regen brain. The reason I bring that up is because in the Regen brain project, we are looking at myelination as well as regeneration of nerve cells. And what we found in our phase 1b/2a clinical trial is that Aloe promoted these connections between neural circuits, between nerve cells, and strengthened those connections, suggesting that there were more connections and or that those connections were strengthened following just 3 months of Aloe treatment. So we're pretty excited about those findings. And again, we'll be pursuing that outcome in our phase 2 clinical trial, as well as whether we're regenerating the structure of the brain. We'll be looking at whether we're also regenerating and restructuring the connections in the brain. All right, so I think I'm going to try to I guess I have to stop sharing at this point. There, and look at the other questions here. Oh, can I spell the name of the cognitive testing site? It's mind, M as in mother, I, N as in Nancy, D as in David, crowd, all one word, mind crowd. Yep. Oh, if somebody has already answered that. And let me,
I
great.
was also just going to interject here, Dr. Brinton, just a reminder, we will also include the links in our post-session email. So if you are following us on Zoom, we will have that as well for you so you don't miss a thing.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Then the other aspect that I'd like to share with you is the way that we've organized the Center for Innovation in Brain Science. And we've organized it really around kind of a neural network. Right? So none of us knows it all, but together we know a lot. So the center is organized around individuals, scientists with expertise in Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and ALS and multiple sclerosis. And then we also have experts in data science and in bioenergetics and in molecular design. So whenever we have a question about, well, how does this work? We have an expert right here in real time where we can ask that question and find out the answer. Essentially the center has also been a unique design that I have to give the University of Arizona tremendous credit for being, again, very bold. We're a hybrid. We're set up like a biotech in academia. So part of what we also do is we're very therapeutic, mission-oriented organization center here at the university. So everything we do is about getting to you. And one of the other areas of expertise we have is in commercialization. Now we partner closely with Tech Launch Arizona. We also have within the center an individual, Dr. Mark Drew, who knows a great deal about molecular design, commercialization, patent law. So again, we're set up as a biotech within academia. So we have the benefits of kind of a biotech environment and the benefits of being within the University of Arizona, this rich intellectual and discovery environment. So I like to make some promises. I am very confident that with this approach, we'll actually be very successful in bringing therapeutics to treat and regenerate the Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, ALS, and multiple sclerosis brain.
That is wonderful. Just want to allow just maybe another minute if we have any more questions or feedback from our audience. But Dr. Brinton, this has been so enlightening. And I just have to say that I love that you heard it from the expert here that when it comes to aging, you can still party hard, but allow for recovery time. That is a direct quote from our expert. I think that is wonderful, something for all of us to remember. But I think also another key point that you made is that everyone is aging, and that in order to get from, if we want to maintain our health, our cognitive health, needs to start early on. Don't wait until you are in those what you feel are your aging years. Start early, because it does have that impact. So I think that is very, very important. So I'm not seeing any more questions come through. Dr. Brinton, do you have any last parting words for us that you'd like to share?
Well, I'm thrilled. Again, I'm thrilled to be here back at my alma mater to do what no one else has done, right? To address the challenge that in the 21st century, we will have cures for neurodegenerative diseases. We're on it. Our mission is to bring those innovations in brain science of the future to those who need it today.
And that is such wonderful news. And just coming from a personal story from someone who has been a caregiver for my mother who has gone through these diseases impact so many people. It's not just the patient themselves, but it spans generations. So thank you again for sharing all of this great information. And just as a reminder for all those who are attending and joining us by Zoom, you will be receiving a follow-up email, and we'll be sure to include all the links in here so that you have the information, including to our health sciences website as well, so you can get the latest news and information. So thank you all for joining us today for Wellness Wednesday. It is always our pleasure to provide this important health news for you. On behalf of Anne-Marie, Medina, and myself, thank you. We also want to share a programming note that this will be our last Wellness Wednesday for the calendar year. We are also looking for ideas for future programming as we readjust our health and wellness series. Wellness Wednesday first launched in about a year and a half ago when the COVID pandemic really began to impact our local communities. We wanted to provide kind of an easy bits of information during lunchtime break to help our audience, our communities, our community members and families to be able to have quick and easy and tangible information that they could use in the changing environment. We're now, finding that we're getting more requests for different types of information. So we're going to use the next couple of months to reevaluate our programming, our educational community programming, and perhaps come back next year with some new and a more robust program, and hopefully be able to offer in-person as well as virtual sessions. So we thank all of those of you who have been with us for the last year and a half for Wellness Wednesdays, and certainly our faculty and staff and advisors along the way who have given their time and provided these valuable resources. We thank you all, and we wish you all the best for the remainder of this year. Stay healthy. Be sure to get tested and also vaccinated if possible. Thank you all.
Thank you. Delighted to be with you.